On this program, occasionally, we do make fun of Donald Trump. Occasionally. And with the ribbing and the joshing and the pulling the pants down and the pointing. But he is in pain right now.
Multiple sources tell the Washington Post Trump has grown increasingly upset about Harris's surging poll numbers.
Trump is, quote, complaining relentlessly.
Posting multiple times on social media, clearly frustrated with Biden's decision to step aside, saying, quote, now we have to start all over again.
Not fair! Jesus! A month ago, he was basically already the president. He had cheated death, started a new ear accessory trend. Back then, people thought his VP selection was a smart choice. He had it all in the bag, and it was taken away. He was perfect on the beam. He nailed the dismount. He was walking to the podium to get his medal, and Romania files an inquiry at the last minute, right at the last minute. And they're just stealing it from him. And by the way, Romania, file all you want. You're not getting that medal back. Huh? You're not getting it back. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, we have an inquiry. Yeah, good luck. But now, instead of enjoying the fruit of 6 years of Biden attacks, Trump's got to start all over again. And the audience has to literally sit through him getting up to speed.
There are numerous ways of saying her name. You can say Kamala, you can say Kamala.
Kamala.
Hey, Kamala.
Trump misspelled Harris's first name as Kamala.
I get Kamala. I get Kamala. Kamala? Judges, are we taking Kamala? Oh. Hope the Romanians don't have a problem with that. But you know what? I guess what Trump calls her isn't as important as figuring out what she is.
I don't know, is she Indian or is she black? She was Indian all the way, and then all of a sudden she made a turn, and she became a black person.
Just to be clear.
What am I gonna do with all my Indian ethnic slurs I was gonna use? It mostly involved turmeric and cumin. But she made a turn into black. He talks about it like she wandered into the wrong neighborhood. Like she was driving on the Upper West Side, and then boom, she's in Harlem. Boom. With a turn. You know what, Donald? You're clearly struggling. Let's get some issue-oriented ideas flowing here. You know what we're going to do? Come on, my brother. I'm going to help you out. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to do some... Apparently, I'm in a musical about gambling all of a sudden. All right, here we go. I got my pen, I got my pad, I got my visor. Forget the biographical stuff for now. Let's focus on the issues.
I saw it yesterday on ABC, where they said, oh, the crowd was so big. And I've spoken to the biggest crowds. Nobody's spoken to crowds bigger than me.
Okay. That's one of those mom and pop issues for the single issue crowd size voter. I'd move on, but you've got more?
I had 107,000 people in New Jersey. You didn't report it. I'm so glad you asked. What did she have yesterday? 2,000 people? We had in Harrisburg 25,000 people, and 20,000 people couldn't get in. We had so many. Nobody ever mentions that. When she gets 1,500 people, they said, oh, the crowd was so big. I have 10 times, 20 times, 30 times the crowd size.
I had an infinite crowd. She had one guy named Jeff. All right. It's very clear. You have everybody. She has nobody. Can we move on?
He wrote, has anyone noticed that Kamala cheated at the airport? There was nobody at the plane and she AI'd it and showed a massive crowd of so-called followers, but they didn't exist. He goes on to say she's a cheater, she had nobody waiting, and the crowd looked like 10,000 people.
Oh my God. Now, all right, for those of you at home who are saying like, oh, it sounds like he's losing his mind. Just because there's video and photographic evidence that Kamala Harris's crowd was real doesn't mean that it was real. And then you might say, oh, well, John, I was actually there. I was in the crowd. And have you considered you're not real? Have you considered that? The point is this. Donald Trump doesn't need the fake news media and their AI crowd shots to win this thing. Because he's got inside information on Kamala Harris from someone she used to date.
Well, I know Willie Brown very well. In fact, I went down in a helicopter with him. We thought maybe this is the end. We were in a helicopter going to a certain location together. And there was an emergency landing. But he told me terrible things about her.
You were in a helicopter with former San Francisco Mayor Willie Brown, who famously dated Kamala Harris. And while the helicopter was going down, as you were plunging to your imminent death, former San Francisco Mayor Willie Brown turns to you and says, this might not mean anything to you now, but do you remember that lady I was going out with? The prosecutor. Well, before we die, I just want you to know she's the worst. I do not want to meet my maker without giving you that piece of information. If you survive, you may need it. Oh, my God! I got to tell you, I'm sure a moment like that was seared not only into the memory of Donald Trump, but also into the memory of former Mayor Willie Brown.
To be clear, you have never been on a helicopter with Donald Trump.
No, I have not. Are you kidding me? I just assumed that he was on a helicopter ride with somebody black and he made a mistake and thought it was me.
What? What? That is so up. I'm sure that is not what happened. What are the chances Trump is just mixing up his black people?
It seems that the African-American politician in question was not Kamala Harris's ex, former San Francisco Mayor Willie Brown, but rather this man, Nate Holden, a former Los Angeles City Council member who says he had a bumpy ride with Trump in 1990.
Oh, my God! Do you know what this means? Nate Holden, former Los Angeles City Council member, told Donald Trump as their helicopter was going down bad things about Kamala Harris that I guess Willie Brown had told him if they knew each other. That is the only explanation, right?
Holden saying, quote, Willie is the short black guy living in San Francisco. I'm a tall black guy living in Los Angeles. I guess we all look alike.
Hey! Donald Trump is not racist. He just meets a lot of people on death helicopters. And he needs some mnemonic device help. If the chopper goes down, that's not Willie Brown. A little mnemonic device. Here's one. If the flight's not going great, you're probably riding with Nate. Look, people, they pulled the candidate Trump was crushing. It's hard. You think you could write a new hour in a month? It's not easy. He's trying. He's trying out some good catastrophizing on Harris.
If Harris wins this election, you will quickly have a crash like in 1929. We could end up in World War III. The suburbs will be overrun.
Boom. That's what I'm talking about. Stock market crash, World War III, suburbs destroyed. It's fresh. It's new. We haven't heard. What was that? I'm sorry.
If Biden got in, you'll have a stock market crash, the likes of 1929 or worse. A very real risk of World War III. They're going to, in my opinion, destroy suburbia.
This is just a remix? Dude, you can't just find and replace Biden with Kamala. That's lazy apocalypsing. Look, man, if you want us to genuinely fear your opponent as the existential threat you'd like to make them out to be, you're going to have to do better than boilerplate, cut and paste shit. You're better than this, Donald.
Joe Biden is a failed president. She was a failed vice president. The worst president in the history, the worst vice president in history. He is incompetent. She's incompetent. Everything he's touched has been bad. Everything she's touched has turned to bad things. She can't talk. She can't talk.
In many ways, he's worse than Bernie.
She's worse than Bernie. Low IQ. He's a low IQ individual. She happens to be really a low IQ individual. She really does. She has a very low IQ.
This is bullshit, man. This is like when Elton John changed like 3 words and then pretended Candle in the Wind was always about Diana. It wasn't. Very disrespectful to Maryland. Too soon? Here's the problem. Even when Trump does figure out how to come at Kamala, it's not really landing, because most of the time, the bad stuff he's saying about her applies even more to him.
If Kamala will lie to you so brazenly about Joe Biden's mental incapacity, then she will lie to you about anything. She can never, ever be trusted.
Yes, Donald Trump is telling America not to elect a liar. Donald Trump is saying that. Don't elect a liar. I mean, for God's sakes, he's like the Michael Jordan of lying. Or as Trump would say it, the Willie Brown of lying. Confused me. Look, I hate to say it. I don't think Trump has got it in him to go after Kamala Harris. He's been fighting Joe Biden for 6 years. It's all he knows. He misses the fight so much. He was still workshopping nicknames for Joe Biden this weekend.
What do you like better? It doesn't matter anymore, but what do you like better, Crooked Joe or Sleepy Joe? Sleepy Joe, Crooked Joe.
This is sad. It's like seeing an old man talking to an empty spot on the bench. And then you realize, that's where his wife used to sit. He would give her everything for just one more moment with Crooked Joe.
I hear he's going to make a comeback at the Democrat convention. He's going to walk into the room and he's going to say, I want my presidency back. I want another chance to debate Trump. I want another chance.
He's not coming back. He's not coming back, Donald. Hey, you know how I know he's not coming back? We have a camera on him. That's him. He's just sitting there at the beach having an Arnold Palmer. You can hear him sighing over the waves. Does this look like a man marshaling his forces to take back the nomination or filming a Corona commercial? He's finding his beach. It's over. There's only one way. Donald? Meet me at camera one. Hello, friend. May I call you Donald? I get it. You wanted to run against Joe Biden. Just two old dudes going toe-to-toe fungus. The last hurrah, Rocky 12. It's not fair. Now you've got to run against someone who appears healthy and youthful and happy. Her vigor standing as a stark counterpoint to whatever front butt thing you have going on. And it's pretty clear that Biden isn't going to do what needs to be done to stop this steal. But someone I know loves stopping steals. Right? Feeling me? Kamala Harris accepts the nomination next Thursday night, which means it may be time to get the gang together. Storm the convention. Pull in August 22nd. This time on behalf of Joe Biden. All you need is thousands of supporters who have not yet been sent to jail yet for being part of the last mob. Or got sent to jail so early in the process, they're already out. If only there was a sign of the righteousness of this cause.
A federal judge ruling the Department of Justice must return the spear and fur helmet belonging to QAnon shaman Jacob Chansley.
Shaman! Don thy fur helmet, we ride on! For Biden!
Donald Trump is trying to reach out to undecided voters, but he also knows that sometimes you gotta work the base. Luckily, there's one place where all the far-right mouth breathers come together. Twitter, or X if you're nasty. What could go wrong?
Overnight, former President Trump holding a freewheeling, albeit glitch-filled conversation on X with its owner, Elon Musk.
Technical issues delaying it from the start for more than 40 minutes. Musk blaming a so-called denial of service attack, saying the massive attack illustrates there's a lot of opposition to people just hearing what President Trump has to say, though we provided no evidence of such a cyber attack.
I think it's pretty obvious at this point. This is the deep state.
That's right. Only the deep state could make Elon Musk's website suck. Just like they're to blame for making his cars look like a DeLorean whose mom smoked during pregnancy. But if there's a deep state trying to silence Donald Trump, you suck at your job, okay? Because he is the opposite of silent. There is no one more unsilent than Donald Trump right now. Hey, deep state, look at me. Look at me. Do better. Do better. But eventually they solved the technical issue and got the conversation going, although it sounded like the glitch had moved from the Twitter servers directly to Trump's mouth.
I want to close up Department of Education, move education back to the states where states like Iowa, where states like Idaho, you know, not every state will do great.
What is happening in his mouth? I know the guy's big on slurs, but this is next level. And look, I know his speech was distracting, but did Sylvester Trump over here just say that he wants to close the Department of Education? Think this through, Trump. Without schools, where are you going to ban books from? Think. It's weird he's even talking about sending teachers to the gulag because Trump has more popular policies, like his proposal to end taxes on tips, which is so popular that Kamala Harris now says that she supports it. And Trump is not happy about that.
no tax on tips, and all of a sudden she's making a speech and there will be no tax on tips. I said that months ago, and then all of a sudden for politics, she says, you know, she comes out with what I said.
Look, to be fair, Kamala did copy Trump's no tax on tips idea, which would make it the first time in history that a woman got credit for repeating a man's idea. We did it, girls. And she didn't stop there. Kamala also completely ripped off his idea to lead in the polls by 3 points against a rapidly deteriorating candidate. That was his thing. Now, obviously, Trump did his fair share of dragging Kamala during this interview, but there were also moments that he took it in a surprising direction.
I saw a picture of her on Time magazine today. She looks like the most beautiful actress ever to live. It was a drawing, and actually, she looked very much like our great First Lady, Melania. But of course, she's a beautiful woman, so we'll leave it at that, right?
Ooh, someone has a crush. Did he have a sex dream about Kamala that he just can't shake and now everything feels different? Like he can't focus on anything. He's just going through Time magazine looking for a centerfold. Like, either way, I think we finally found the one thing Trump is incapable of lying about. If he thinks someone is hot, he'll say they're hot. He'll lie about winning an election, but he has deep respect for the sanctity of bangability. That's noble. That's a noble thing. But maybe my favorite part of the entire interview was when Donald Trump told the story of how he threatened Vladimir Putin not to invade Ukraine in the most 1990s way.
I said to Vladimir Putin, I said, don't do it. You can't do it, Vladimir. You do it, it's going to be a bad day. You cannot do it. And I told him things that what I do, and he said, no way. And I said, way.
That high-level diplomatic language before.
No way. Way.
Yes, Wayne's World. Wayne's World. It's like Wayne's World, except the wigs have gotten a lot worse. There's one thing we all know about Donald Trump. It's that he's not a policy guy. He's more of a boobs guy, or a she'll have a salad guy, or a babe, I swear I have a latex allergy guy. Definitely not a policy guy. So last year, the Heritage Foundation put out a policy for him. It's called Project 2025, and everyone's talking about it. It's really having a brat summer. It's essentially a blueprint for transforming the government from a neutral bureaucracy to a conservative Death Star. And I'm going to be honest, it's very upsetting. But the most upsetted was Donald Trump.
Well, on Truth Social, Trump wrote, I know nothing about Project 2025. I have no idea who's behind it.
They come up with this, I don't know what the hell it is. It's Project 25. I don't know anything about it. I don't want to know anything about it.
Okay, now I'm suspicious, because the last time Trump said, I don't know anything about that, he was talking about Stormy Daniels. So, did Trump Project 2025? Trump has consistently said he doesn't know anything about Project 2025, but that might be hard to believe after this.
This week, we got new evidence of the connections between Trump and Project 2025. Reporters for Documented and ProPublica obtained 14 hours worth of private training videos from the group, and many of the people in the videos have worked for Donald Trump and remain close to him.
Hello. My name is Jeff Small. I was a presidential appointee in the Trump administration.
I am a former political appointee in the Donald J. Trump administration.
I served in the Trump administration.
Was on the Trump campaign team early on.
You stayed until the final hour.
Yes.
During the Trump administration, I served as the Assistant Secretary for Public Affairs at the Department of Homeland Security.
Are Are you sure that you were at the Department of Homeland Security and not the guy they brought in to throw holy water on Giuliani? Because you say you're a Trump staffer, but you look like the last thing a Russian czar sees before he's thrown into the back of a carriage. So this guy worked in the Trump administration. Can you imagine how often Mike Pence tried to confess to him? Father, today I saw a pear and had impure thoughts. The point is, 29 out of 36 speakers in these videos worked for Trump. There is no way he doesn't know who they are. You think he wouldn't remember meeting a guy who looks like ZZ Top joined a monastery? Anyone would remember meeting this guy. You're telling me he's got a nickname for Joe Biden, but not Libertarian Gandalf? Come on, I don't think so. Look, I want to get to the videos themselves. These are internal training videos for people who want to join a new Trump government in the hopes of someday being kicked off Dancing with the Stars. But they won't just hire anyone.
If you've been convicted of a crime, you will not be serving in the federal government. Crimes such as fraud, embezzlement, and tax evasion show a lack of moral character.
Yeah, we'd hate to have fraudsters and tax evaders work for the Trump administration. Go on.
To obtain employment in government, it is not favorable if you have accumulated debt and filed for bankruptcy.
You might want to run this up the chain to the boss because it's starting to feel personal. No tax evasion, no bankruptcies, no weird hairstyles, no one who had a cameo in Home Alone 2, and definitely nobody who constantly brings up Hannibal Lecter like it's a real person. But hiring standards aside, these videos also delve into Project 2025's agenda and policies. And for a party that's recently been fighting back against allegations that they're weird, this won't help.
Hi, I'm Katie Sullivan, and just a normal American woman.
Are you sure? Because now that you said it, I'm wondering. Hi, I'm just a normal American woman wearing normal woman's skin, as we normal women do. Okay, you were being normal?
And just a normal American woman. But to the left, that makes me a cisgendered, ethno-imperialist, birthing person with pronouns she, her.
Oh my God. Is every sentence going to be like this? I'm sitting in a chair, or as the left would call it, a quad-leg-abled, upcycled, non-binary, wood-based booty ally. Okay, got it. She doesn't have pronouns, but that's all culture war stuff. What about something less personal and more policy, like climate change? And remember, don't make it weird.
Climate change, allegedly, is everywhere. This is an issue to pay attention to as it has infiltrated every part of the federal government. Now, when I think of climate change, I immediately think of population control, don't you?
No, I don't. No, I don't think of population control when I think of climate change, you weirdo. I think of forest fires and Smokey Bear and his tight little bear bod, like a normal American woman. So what makes these videos clear is that Project 2025 plans to remake the entire federal government into an organ of the conservative movement. But because they know how unpopular that is, they're also teaching their recruits how to keep it a secret.
What you probably want to do is if you need to resolve something, you're probably better off going down to the canteen, getting a cup of coffee, talking it through, and making the decision, as opposed to sending them an email and creating a thread that accountable.us or one of those other groups is going to come back and seek, and you're going to have to explain why you're withholding it, and you're going to fight in court. It's going to be a lot of expense. It's an email that's better resolved with a meeting.
Yeah, gotcha. No paper trail. You're recording this, right? Sound, audio, we're rolling? Good. By the way, this video might actually bring Project 2025 to a screeching halt, because I don't care how badly you want to ban abortion. If you have to physically meet someone for coffee to do that, that. No, let him have the rights. Let him have it. Yesterday, he announced that he would give a major policy speech on the economy, which is a big change for him, although you could tell he wasn't very excited about it.
Now, this is a little bit different day, because this isn't around. We're talking about a thing called the economy. They wanted to do a speech on the economy. A lot of people are very devastated by what's happened with inflation and all of the other things. So we're doing this as a intellectual speech. You're all intellectuals today. Today we're doing it, and we're doing it right now.
All right, I guess we're doing it. We're doing it right now. Now he understands what every woman was thinking when they slept with him. Let's just get it over with right now. Just right now. I mean, Trump's crowd had to also have been disappointed, because they were there for a Trump rally, not an intellectual speech. That's like logging onto Pornhub and only getting TED Talks. I mean, I'm still going to jerk off to it. It's just going to take longer. But with just 81 days left until the election, Trump needs to focus on the issues. So let's hear this intellectual, focused economic policy speech.
Crooked Joe, he didn't do interviews either. Remember, Joe, what kind of ice cream is your favorite? Vanilla. Oh, I like vanilla. Oh. That was George Floppadopoulos.
Okay. I guess you got to warm up first. You can't just jump right into the economics. Start by attacking the guy you're not even running against anymore. But now that you're warmed up, economics, go.
You're getting out now, Joe. We can do it the nice way, or we can do it the hard way. And he's getting out. He's getting out. In fact, they're not even giving him a good spot to speak. You know when he's speaking on Monday? Monday's not that's the worst day.
Monday's the worst day? That's a Garfield policy. Joe Biden is not in the race anymore. Let's focus on your current opponent.
Barack Hussein Obama.
Oh, my God. Oh, my God. Girl, you gotta move on. He does not think about you, okay? Your current opponent is Kamala Harris. Say something substantive about Kamala Harris.
That's the laugh of a crazy person, I will tell you, if you haven't known it. It's a crazy. She's crazy. That's the laugh of a person with some big problems.
Yeah, Kamala's the one with the big problems, definitely. Also, it is so inappropriate to insult a woman's laugh. Women are supposed to laugh. It's mandated by our pillows. You know what? You win. Just talk about whatever the you want to talk about.
And now they're putting her on the covers of Time magazine with an artist sketch. They don't use a picture, they use an artist sketch. I want to use that artist. I want to find that artist. I like him very much.
Donald, do you really need a new sketch artist? I feel like you have plenty of sketches. I hate to nitpick, but in this speech about the economy, do you think at any point you might want to say something about the economy?
I did have something I would show you. Wait a minute. I don't know if you've seen this. I used it once. Oh, I have it. I do have it. Look at this. Look at this. So, this is Tic Tacs, right?
Yes. I mean, they came out of your pocket, so they might be roofies, but... the argument they're Tic Tacs. What does that have to do with the economy?
But that's what happened. This is inflation. This is Tic Tac. This is Tic Tac. This is inflation. This is what's happened. I just happened to have, somebody gave me this one today. I said, I think we'll put it up as an example of inflation.
That is not an example of inflation. It's just two different sizes of breath mints. I mean, my understanding of macroeconomics is limited, but I do know for a fact that inflation is not defined as big Tic Tac, little Tic Tac. Jesus Christ. And by the way, Donald, if someone hands you a breath mint, they're not suggesting you talk about inflation. They're suggesting you take a breath mint.